Thank you, Adrian. This was really great, and Rana, these are both really wonderful. For Adrian, I just had more of an observation than a comment. I mean, there is this kind of imposition that we're all struggling with about madhab as-salaf as a kind of doctrinal thing. But I think what you've demonstrated here is that so there's a contemporary Syrian sheikh who passed away who was killed rather in 2013, Saeed Ramadan al-Bulti. It was a very famous book, kind of involved in all of the Salafi, Sunni, Ash'ari kind of polemic. And he makes his observation, and the title says it all. He says, As-Salafiyya laysa madhab Islamiyya, bal zaman mubarakah. Salafism is not a school of Islamic thought. It's a period of Islamic history, a blessed period of Islamic history. And I was wondering if you could comment on that in light of that idea that, it's a period of history in which there have some normative boundaries like you suggested. If you could, just based off of what you've presented, if you could comment on that.
Yeah, I haven't read the book, but I'm interested. Here, the problem is, of course, the polysemy of the term, because it means several things, and if we don't accept it and try to have one, it's even in every field of study, it becomes just impossible. Only in Shahrastani, we have irreconcilable meanings of the same word. So clearly, we have to distinguish and to accept that it is a period of time, but also for some authors, a madhab grounded in that period of time, but not when we say the madhab of the Salaf, it cannot be as a path to follow, it cannot be of the entire period. I mean, of course, there were different opinions, different legal, theological opinions in that period. So, but the chronological element is important too. We've seen that all the time, that it's extremely important to give authority to the speakers, that they belong to this time period. So we have to admit this polysemy and trying to make it clear, I think, when we explain an author or something, because but it's not only our problem. They are playing with this polysemy all the time. They're using it because it's not bad when you can say, my school, my branch of Islam is the one of the companions. That's a perfect element. So playing with it is a perfect game of those who use it.
I really like that you're bringing to our attention this notion of polysemy of the term salaf, but maybe we can also think about the problem of the term madhab, because madhab then becomes, okay, madhaba ilayhi, the place where somebody goes to, the position that one maintains, but we use madhab again in a very formative, like we're in the classical period now. There's like usul, furu', there's like, a whole structure that what we think about when we say madhab, which I think the early period resists. And madhab is fairly complicated because even in theological texts, we'll talk about madhab al-qadariyya and madhab al-jabariyya, but is that a full-fledged theological school that has the principles of legal interpretation and theological No, it's one particular mas'ala upon which they dispute, but we still call them madhab. And that problem, and that usage remains in the later tradition, where now madhab is like madhab al-Mu'tazila, but they don't really use madhab for theological schools, because now we're using madhab for fiqh schools that have usul and furu' and a whole systematic way of thinking. So I really value your drawing our attention to the term, to the polysemy of the term salaf, but I think also madhab is an important one too. And if we're going to say that there's like what kind of constitutes that, it would seem to me that the madhab of the salaf is this desire to not engage in rational interpretation. That seems to be the one thing that, you know, applies to all the different schools in some sense. And then when they do some form of defense, like Muhasibi and the others that were mentioned there, they do it in defense of the kind of the doctrine that's maintained there. So I don't know, you know, even the term madhab for me becomes a tricky point, right? So, but thank you.
Thank you. I absolutely agree. And I think with madhab too, authors are playing. In particular, you mentioned the madhab al-Jabriyya. Clearly, they do not exist as a madhab, but rhetorically, it's important, especially for the Asharite authors, to say that they are in the middle between the Jabariyya who did not exist and the Qadariyya who are maybe the Mu'tazilites at least. But so to have a madhab that is an opinion, but also maybe a school, can be rhetorically extremely efficient. Yeah.
Just a couple of questions for Rana. Thank you to you both for really interesting and engaging presentations. I was wondering if you detected any hierarchy between the use of like prophetic traditions by Awza'i and the opinions of the community or the agreement of the community. Does the agreement of the community only come into play when there are no prophetic traditions, or, you know, are they ever in conflict? Is there an obvious hierarchy? And the second one was, I wondered if you had looked at Asir al-Kabir, attributed to Shaybani, but basically a summary of Shaybani's Siyar by As-Sarakhsi. I don't think it's really a verbatim or kind of a narrative of like Shaybani's actual kind of words. It's more of a summary, but he does mention a lot the positions of Ahl al-Sham, and I just wondered if that was the same thing as what was in Ar-Rad by Abu Yusuf.
Basically, the prophetic precedent comes first, and then he either asks the communal to back it up or to, I was thinking of it, it's almost like an isnad. It's a living isnad. It's not a one person, but it's a collectivity that's embodying the practice. And then there are instances where it's just communal, and I suspect that's because he didn't have a prophetic precedent. The thing is, the one thing I wanted to point out that one thing is this question of the precedent that's communal ending with Walid ibn Yazid, and that it's kind of could be the army. This is, I think, just specific to warfare. I doubt if one examines mas'alas, if they exist, of al-Awza'i dealing with other issues, ritual, etc., that would be the precedent. So basically, the idea of the Salaf here should be seen also as contextual. And so definitely kind of just in that case, the Abu Ishaq al-Fazari's book, on the other hand, there's even sometimes no precedent cited at all, and that kind of adds another layer to kind of figuring out what he's basing it on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, both of you. Oops. When it comes to Ash-Shahrastani, I think he rather compiled his work than really composed it. But when we look at the use of Salaf, do we have any indications that he actually structured as-Salaf according to his own system, or did he just took up what was in the air already from other authors?
It's always difficult to know what is very original in Shahrastani. It's interesting anyway, as a kind of milestones. What was the way of thinking in the 6th or 12th century, and also because it was widely read, and so it became normative. So that's important, at least for both. what is the personal idea in Shahrastani in it? It's not so easy. Anyway, the comparison with Abu Mansur al-Baghdadi, according to me, is quite interesting because it shows some originalities, while some other things are probably directly taken from him. But so it's hard to be sure of the originality, and probably it's not the important point. Even if we finish with accepting that Shahrastani was himself Ismaili, so not part of this movement of Sunnism that identifies himself with the Salaf, but so I would not make a theory of, yes, he's building an image of the Salaf because he's opposing to it. I don't think so, honestly. He's more collecting elements of what's in the air, what's in the atmosphere, to do that. Important to me is that we hear about the Salaf in the Kitab al-Milal only about the Sifatiyya and the Mu'tazila. That are the only parts where they are present. That's very different of what we saw before, where it was only about the Shia and the Kharijites. Now, no, it's the opposition is with the Mu'tazila, with it's really a doctrinal point, and that's quite new.
I think we still have about 5 minutes for questions. Rana, I had one question. You're going to have to help me with the passage, but there was in one of the quotes you had, there's this phrase, وَإِن رَفَضَكَ النَّاسِ.
Yeah.
How do you interpret this? I mean, so I think preceding it, it was saying that you ought to follow the Salaf, even if you find that the general consensus of the people is kind of opposed to you or opposed to what you're doing. I mean, is this setting up a kind of opposition between the Salaf and the majority of what we see among the polity?
I mean, here I'm going to have to speculate a little bit because I haven't really thought about it as I first saw it. But one of the things that I had noticed about Al-Awza'i that you also see in the Radd ala Siyar Al-Awza'i is that a lot of the time he will hold opinions that are considered shadh to a certain extent, in the sense that they are out, they're different, no one else holds that. And I kind of wonder whether it connects to that you hold on to that idea, even if the consensus around you is that you're unique in that. So one case in point, for example, from a Radd ala Siyar Al-Awza'i is that he, and that Abu Yusuf really gets mad at, is that he says that you give a share to children and to women who participate in jihad. And basically that is an opinion that no one else holds, but it's consistent for him. It's based on an Ibn Abbas's kind of statement. And so he's kind of unique in it. So I'm wondering whether it can be connected to that. But this is speculation. I'm not sure if that's correct or not.